but we're going to be obviously a little bit more relaxed. Y'all are eating. So, but to continue with what we were discussing in the last part, one of the things that I kind of love about after Peter denied Christ 3 times is, it sounds weird like saying I love it, but the response that Jesus had, it wasn't in the Gospel of Matthew. I believe it was actually the Gospel of Luke. Yes, there's the Gospel of Luke 22:61, where it mentions how Jesus turned and looked at Peter, and it shows just like he, just the way they describe it, he looks at him and he doesn't have, judgment. He doesn't have like, hey, I told you after this it was going to happen, but it was almost a kindness, a love in his eyes, which I've mentioned quite a few times. So, I'm confused with the laughter, but I'm going to go with it unless you have something to say.
Jesus.
Okay, Jesus. Okay. So, if you'd listen, because we're going to start chapter 7 and read a little bit, and then I'm going to ask for some responses. So, 27:1. When the morning came, all the chief priests and elders of the people took counsel against Jesus to put him to death. And they bound him and led him away and delivered him over to Pilate, the governor. Then, when Judas, his betrayer, saw that Jesus was condemned, he changed his mind and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders, saying, I have sinned by betraying innocent blood. They said, What is that to us? See to it yourself. And throwing down the pieces of silver into the temple, he departed and went and hung himself. But the chief priests, taking the pieces of silver, said, It's not lawful to put them into the treasury, since it is blood money. So they took counsel and brought with them the potter's field as a burial place for strangers. Therefore, that field has been called the field of blood to this day. Then was fulfilled what had been spoken by the prophet Jeremiah, saying, And they took the 30 pieces of silver, and the price of him on whom a price had been set by some of the sons of Israel, and they gave them the potter's field as the Lord directed me. Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, Are you the king of the Jews? Jesus said, You have said so. But when he was accused by the chief priests and elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate said to him, Do you not hear how many things they testify against you? But he gave him no answer, but not even to a single charge, so that the governor was greatly amazed. Now I'm going to stop there and ask for, is there anything that, pops out to me? I'm going to just kind of say it. Again, he says, you have said so. As he said to Judas, as he said to a few others, it's a consistent way of just responding without saying too much. I'll give it a minute until someone at least gives an answer.
I'm just trying to keep all of these officials straight. So is Pilate the governor, or?
Yeah, Pilate's the governor. So.
And so was he speaking for Rome, or was he still the Jews?
Yeah, so he's speaking for Rome, because they had to take him to the governor of Rome to be killed, pretty much. And what's actually interesting about the governor of Rome being Pilate, he historically, if you actually look at who he was historically, he was a cruel man. He did not like the Jews. The Jews didn't like him. He would kill people just to do it. But there was just something different about Jesus, about the situation, and he even saw it. Yeah.
So
I know in the Passion,
Mhm.
it mentions that his wife, says that she has a dream
Mhm.
about
It
him.
says that in the Bible.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. No. Yes.
I couldn't recall if that was
It's not in
in
Matthew.
scripture or not.
Actually, it is in Matthew.
Is it?
Yes.
Maybe it's
well,
later.
Yeah, it's a bit later from here. But yeah, it's one of those things where you see that, and because you in the Passion, there's like a continuous thing because it happens earlier on, and she mentions it a few times, and she's like, "Hey, don't do this. There's gonna be this thing. Don't do it." And so yeah, you have something, Alex?
Oh, I was just going to say that it's very interesting the reason why Pilate was amazed, because I think Pilate was expecting Jesus to beg for his life.
Yeah. Like,
And
yeah.
he didn't beg for his life, he just straight up said the truth, which is what Pilate already knew was the truth, and then he was silent.
Yeah, and honestly, I would be amazed just as much as Pilate,
Yeah,
because
for real.
like all these
They're all
people,
accusing you.
yeah, and like so every time this week, well, pretty much anytime I teach, I will read the passage a few hours before to make sure I catch something or whatever, but when reading this, it's always difficult for me because just the fact that he took everything. He did not fight against, he did not say, like you said, didn't say anything. He only responded when he needed to, and it was just the love he has for us. That truly shows it. So, if there's anything else, or if there's nothing else, I will continue reading at verse 15. Oh yes, no.
I also noticed how Pilate said, "Do you not hear how many things they testify against you?" I think he doesn't answer because he knows that they don't know any better because he knows that they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's not in this gospel, which is really kind of upsetting. But the other gospel, no, when he says, "Forgive them, for they not know what they do," and that is true.
Later.
The what?
Not later.
Yeah. Well, it's
It was
it's
on the cross.
yeah, it's actually not in the gospel of Matthew though. Yeah. And it's one of those things where you're correct, where it's like. He's accused of these things, but he's like, I know these things are false. I know, like, they don't know what they're doing, and I will not respond.
Wow, I never really thought about that, no, because you're right. Like, he could have thrown them under the bus at any point.
Yeah,
Like, no, they're lying. This is all wrong. But
Mhm.
he wasn't there for that.
He doesn't
Yeah.
want them to be punished.
Yeah.
So before I get to the next part, and I'm gonna double check to make sure that there's no more, comments. But before I get to the next part, and there's actually a video that I love about the next part, about Barabbas, and so keep that in mind when I read that. But before I go to that, is there anything else? Sorry, that was funny. Okay, so if there's nothing else, now at the feast, the governor was accustomed to release for the crowd any one prisoner whom they wanted, and they had then a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when they had gathered, Pilate said to them, "Who do you want me to release for you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ?" For he knew it was out of envy that they had delivered him up. Besides, while he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him, "Have nothing to do with that righteous man, for I have suffered much because of him today in a dream." Now the chief priests and the elders pursued got the crowd. Sorry, my English today. The crowd to ask for Barabbas and destroy Jesus. The governor again said to them, "Which of the two do you want me to release for you?" And they said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "Then what shall I do with Jesus, who is called Christ. And they all said, let him be crucified. And he said, why, what evil has he done? And they shouted all the more, let him be crucified. So when Jesus saw that he was gaining nothing, see? English in my brain. Am I tired? So, yeah, thank you. So when Pilate saw that he was gaining nothing, but rather a riot was beginning, he took water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves. And all the people answered, his blood be on us and our children. Yeah. And then he released for them Barabbas, and having whipped Jesus, delivered him to be scourged.
Scourged.
I always say that word wrong, so thank you. Scourge. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered all the battalion before him. Battalion. Oh, I'm so sorry. See, again, my brain. Tiredness, you know. And they stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and twisting together a crown of thorns. Then they put it on his head and put a rod in his right hand. Kneeling before him, they mocked him, saying, Hail, the King of the Jews. And they spat on him and took the rod and struck him on the head. And they had mocked him. They stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him and led him away to crucify him. That never gets easy. Anything there, like, what sticks out to you? What pops out to you in that?
I was just wondering, I don't know if I know this, was like the torture and everything that Jesus went through before being crucified, was that like normal for crucifixions, or just because he was Jesus?
I've tried to find the answer to that. I wouldn't say yes. Alex is wondering
yes.
himself. I wouldn't say yes because when he was whipped, let's see if it shows. So it was pieces of bone, metal, and I believe even clay was used as well when he was whipped. And that just in of itself is just torturing. They have to deal with before even being taken to the cross. So I wouldn't say that was normal now.
Well, the goal is to always remember, you always have to remember that at this point, the Romans had perfected the art of crucifixion. The goal was to make sure that they suffered maximally, but before they finally expire. You didn't want someone to die too quickly, and you didn't want someone to die too slowly either, to set an example for the enemies of Rome.
Mm-hmm.
So off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure that was pretty normal, was just to scourge them, which is what David's talking about, beating them with the 9 tails and just bloodying them up, basically. Yeah.
But
that was a good question, though.
yeah, no, it's a great question. But one of the things also is it seemed like so brutal. Like no one could even begin to even visually think of how brutal it was. Like Mel Gibson tried his best in that Passion movie, but I think it was even worse because there were people who said that there were parts of his ribs that were showing, and I don't want to get too graphic because you're all eating. But but yeah, it's pretty hard to witness.
Basically unrecognizable.
Mm-hmm. That is true. But anything else?
I thought it was pretty interesting on when they were asking, when Pilate was asking on, do you want Barabbas or Jesus, that they chose someone who brought peace than someone who killed like so many people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can even see it in today that when you when you like Jesus was considered a threat to their way of life
Mm-hmm.
because of how he taught, and the Pharisees had a lot of money and a lot of power, and they didn't want to get rid of that, and so obviously that triumphs over any kind of moral right, I think,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to their way of life. So I thought that was really interesting when pride and that kind of selfishness and kind of blindness gets in the way of moral rights. And because if we looked at any of Jesus's actions, there was nothing remotely even close to any.
Mm-hmm.
He was perfect. Like he didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was just very interesting.
Oh yeah, well like Barabbas, he was a thief. He murdered. Like I'm sure he lied. I'm sure he did. He went against probably every commandment there was. Like it never says. Like we see this picture of him. Never again do we know what happened of him.
Interesting to note that some people do think that Barabbas' full name is actually Jesus Barabbas.
That's what my Bible says, yeah.
Yeah, it comes from like Origen, who made that statement. Another interesting thing that I was looking up on Britannia is that the Aramaic for his name is son of the father, or you could say son of the teacher, which could indicate perhaps his father was a Jewish leader, Barabbas.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's a lot of interplay between
Like
Barabbas,
Rabbi,
Jesus,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, and Jesus Christ. And
Yeah.
really
no,
interesting stuff.
Oh no, and that's very, very true. So there's the video I mentioned. It's called "Jesus Loves Barabbas," and I love that video because the speaker, I can't remember who it was. He was like, "We are Barabbas. We are standing in that place." Like he was saying, he was like, some of you might say that you would like turn around and be like, no, Jesus, I don't deserve this, and he would most likely just be like, no, go on, I'm paying the price, you be free, and just it's just such, because Barabbas, it never mentions him saying anything, like he never says anything, like movies and ideas have always made it seem like he would like be saying stuff or screaming or whatever, but it never says he spoke a word. He just gets released, and we never know what happens to him. Some do believe that he might have been saved. We don't know. We don't know that truth. So
So I was thinking that, like, really, the only thing, like Abby was saying, Jesus hadn't done anything to hurt anybody. But for these people, for the Jews, he came and claimed to be God. Like, so if they didn't understand the prophecies, that's big. So, I mean, I guess that would be why they would, in their eyes, it's like, so what, this guy stole stuff, but this one's claiming to be God, so they wanted to let him go. But then I think about that, and the only people that could possibly have anything against him would have been Jews, because he called himself God. So then you have the governor's soldiers. These are just Roman dudes. They're just soldiers.
Yeah.
They're just there to do a job. And so they're mocking, they're just, I mean, yeah, they I feel like they probably had some pretty clear protocol. Okay, here's your guy, do what you do your thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so they're just doing it. And I love, of course, I don't know if it's in Matthew, but the one soldier later on who recognizes Jesus. This man was the Son of God.
yeah, I believe one is I believe somewhere here. Yes, I believe it says
I just
that.
wonder what the Romans had heard at that point. What did Jesus mean to them, if anything? Because he hadn't spread out to Gentiles or anything.
Yeah,
so.
and not really, no, from what I can tell, but I would say that like most of them probably heard because he was in that area, so they knew of him, but they probably didn't see. Not a lot of them saw the miracles and stuff because there were a few Roman
That's true.
guards who like came, or the one that sent his servant to Jesus,
Right, yeah.
and he and then he sent another servant, was like, no. He like my master says, yeah, I'm not worthy for you to step foot. And I just, yeah.
So that just makes me so excited because really those Romans kind of represented us. You know, they were the Gentiles.
Mhm.
Like that message wasn't for them yet. It had never been for them, but it's about to be.
Yeah, and
That's
it-
so
yeah.
cool.
Did you have something, Alex?
Oh yeah, and just to kind of add also, you also have to keep in mind that what Rome is seeing when they see Jesus is they're seeing a pretender to the messiahship,
Right.
which they would have known a little bit about because they were ownership of that area in
Yeah.
Jerusalem, because that always caused riots and problems and stuff.
And he wasn't the first one.
Exactly.
So,
And messiahship to the Jews then, and also to the Romans to an extent, was that there was going to be a king who comes and challenges
Yeah.
Rome's authority.
Yeah.
So that's why you see this little mocking. But something that's also very interesting is the connection you can make between Matthew 27:25, talking about the blood will be on us and our children, and the destruction of the temple in 70 AD.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
Yep.
That was not very far down the road.
Yeah. Well, like, I could use this. Like, when they say children, like, who knows how far of a punishment in some ways that was. I'm sure. I think we talked about this in the Holocaust class. I think there were some Jews that might have thought like they were being punished because of some of that stuff. And that was in the 90s. Not 90s, the 1900s. The 1900s. And so it's insane to even think about. But that is true about the temple is.
Yeah, because he just mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
He mentioned it when he was in the courtyard,
Mm-hmm. The destroying the temple.
destroying the temple and rebuilding it in 3 days.
Yes. Well, he is the temple.
Yeah, this is what
Yeah.
I'm saying, is that it's talking about him.
Yeah. Is there anything else? As soon as I asked that, it got silent.
It's
Anything
also
else?
interesting to note that Pilate washes his hands of the blood.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
He doesn't want anything to do with it
No, he was like, I don't. Nope.
because he already knew he was innocent.
Yeah. He knew he was innocent, and like they say, if your wife tells you that something.
But I can't imagine that in those days the man would have so completely
No.
trusted his wife's word.
Oh, yeah.
Because he also had some
Oh yeah.
hesitation himself.
Oh yeah, like I think once his wife sent that word, it was definitely the okay. My wife's saying it. I'm seeing it. I'm not gonna.
They were pretty superstitious and stuff too.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're very superstitious. Yes.
Since she's getting a dream,
Right.
maybe the gods are
Right.
telling them
Yes,
something.
exactly.
One of the things I think that pushed his decision over the edge too is that it doesn't say it in Matthew, but in another gospel, that they were threatening, that you're supporting this king and, you're supposed to be
Mhm.
supporting Caesar.
Yeah.
They threatened him with,
Yeah.
not being loyal to Caesar.
Yeah,
And
and-
of course, that would be a big scare for him.
Oh yeah. Well, like so he. Some of the stuff that I know of him, he was very Pilate was very, like a hothead overall, and some say that he thought of himself as a king in his region. I thought that was weird. I was like, I never really thought about it that way, but I do know that he got punished by Caesar a lot, and he got in trouble a lot. So this would probably just been the nail.
bigger.
Yeah, this might have been the nail in the coffin for
I
him.
mean, this is the backwaters of the empire too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep that
That's
in mind.
true.
This is the backwaters.
And did these governors kind of function a little bit like the colonial America? They were ruling in the stead of Rome. So there's
Yeah.
a voice. I mean, they were ruling for England in colonial America.
Well, so Caesar tells them, and then he
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah. So they're
I don't fully know the answer to that, but probably kind of in some ways.
I mean, it's more.
I don't know much about the Roman
Based
people.
on the Persian system of
Okay.
governance.
Okay.
But if
Okay.
you want to take a more modern approach, maybe something
like
similar
that.
to like England and the colonies
Yeah.
in some way. But they weren't as autonomous. Like the colonies were a little bit more autonomous
Say that's true.
than what they would have had with the magistrates.
That makes sense.
But that's a good question though.
No, yeah, these are all.
All these authority levels.
Yeah, the high priest, the chief priest, this.
hierarchy.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong. Pilate actually had him flogged.
Yes.
And then he sent him off, because he didn't wanna be a part of it, he sent him off and basically said, here, take him, did he take him to Caesar, or?
No.
Caesar's far away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because again, the idea is that he didn't want to riot or any problems with the Jews. He's had enough problems with them already. So
Yeah, he's
just
like,
kinda
I'm done,
washing
just-
his hands of it and say, just do what you want with the dude. I don't care. He's no threat to me.
Yeah,
at this
yeah.
point. You want to murder him, murder him.
Did they at that point, like, take him to, not Herod, but?
So in the other gospel, I think it's Gospel of Luke. He is sent to Herod. So he's sent before Pilate and then sent before Herod. This is right before Jesus being decided to be crucified. So this was in Luke where it mentions he's in front of Herod and they kind of just don't really see any fault in him, send him back, and Pilate's like, I need to take care of this because if not,
No, that's when he does. Okay.
yeah.
Luke says, on hearing this, Pilate asked if the man was a Galilean. When he learned that Jesus was under Herod's jurisdiction, he
Yeah.
went to Herod.
Yeah, just go to Herod. I don't want to deal with them. So
Yeah, oh, I
But
don't.
then
That's the one.
Herod sent him back to Pilate.
yes, and send him back to Pilate. So he was just like,
Flip-flop.
yeah,
I don't
it's
want
just-
to deal with this.
yeah. I don't think anyone really wanted to deal with this whole situation.
Yeah.
But if we're done there, okay. So as this is verse 32. As they went out, they found a man of Cyrene, I believe. Cyrene? Yeah, close enough. Simon by name. They compelled this man to carry his cross. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they offered him wine to drink, mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his garments among them by casting lots. Then they sat down and kept watching over him there. And over his head they put the charge against him, which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Then 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on the right and one on the left. And those who passed by drilled him, wagging their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." So also the chief priests with the scribes and elders mocked him, saying, "He saved others, he cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now, if he desires him. For he said, I am the Son of God." And the robbers who were crucified with him also reviled him in the same way. Now in the 6th hour there was darkness over the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, I can't say it properly, so I'll just say this, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And some of the bystanders hearing this said, "This man is calling for Elijah." And one of them at once ran and took a sponge, filled it with sour wine, and put it on a rod, and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to save him." And Jesus cried out again with a loud voice, and yielded up his spirit. And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two, from the top to the bottom, and the earth shook, and the rocks were split. The tombs were open, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And the coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. When the sorry about that. When the centurion and those who were with him, keeping watch over Jesus, saw the earthquake and what took place. They were filled with awe and said, "Truly, this was the Son of God." There were also many women there looking on from a distance who had followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering to him, among whom were Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. I'm gonna get tired doing all this. Okay. The crucifixion, the death, the earth shaking, just the sky coming dark, like that's the image to see right there. Like, especially since the saints who, as it's worded, who fallen asleep were raised. Like,
Nobody really ever talks about that.
no.
Did y'all notice that it says when the centurion and those who were with him, keeping watch over Jesus, saw the earthquake, they were filled with the awe and said, "Truly, this is the Son of God." We normally see in movies and other things that it's one centurion who does it, but it was actually a group
Yeah.
who did it.
Yeah, and that's why
That's
you should not
pretty
trust
scary.
movies all the time.
Or illustrations in children's Bibles.
Yes, that is also
It
true.
costs more ink.
Oh, yeah.
Horse and
It costs too much to draw those. Just draw the one.
I love that the temple veil, which separated
Mm-hmm.
the main part from the Holy of Holies, was torn from the top to the bottom.
Mhm.
It could have only been God that did that, because I understand that veil was very thick.
Mm-hmm.
And you
And
couldn't,
tall.
you couldn't just take it and rip it,
Mm-mm.
and you probably couldn't cut it with much of anything that you own.
No, it is like, from what I remember, and I correct me if I'm wrong, it was thick. It was designed a very specific way,
To be
and
a barrier.
the what?
To be a barrier.
And yeah, to be a barrier, and the fact that, like you said, like it wasn't just someone who ripped it; it was God Himself who ripped it, and it's incredible to just see that.
And now we have access to Him
Mm-hmm.
because of that.
Holy of holies.
Yeah.
Holy of Holies is
Right.
there's separation now.
I would like to make mention
Yes.
that with verses 55 through 56, just it's always amazes me. It's interesting when the women are brought up, because
Mhm.
normally you wouldn't expect women,
Yeah.
because women were back then second class citizens. They also weren't counted as witnesses as equal to a man.
Mm-hmm.
Like 2 women were required for 1 man's testimony, but yet Matthew specifically says there were women there, and they saw this too, and then names the women who
Mhm.
were there. I always love that.
Mhm.
It started with Matthew 1 when Mary was named, and it continues on even after crucifixion.
I've actually read, and I don't know if this is 100% true, I haven't dug very deep, but I've read that Christianity is actually one of the most fair of all ancient,
Yeah.
cultures, civilizations, the most fair to women, the most,
Yep. Yep.
inclusive or.
Yeah.
I mean, who were the first ones that saw Jesus risen? It was
Yeah.
women.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's what I love
Powerful.
about the resurrection too, because it's like the thing that could completely destroy our faith and everything that we hold was the test of the fact that the women saw and testified that He is risen,
Yeah.
and I love that because like
First ones to carry the gospel.
yeah, and
Very first ones.
I'll probably mention this tomorrow, but the disciples twice were hidden in the room,
Yes.
and I disagree with the name of Doubting Thomas, but I'm not going to get into that right now.
Poor
But
fella.
yeah, like he gets bad rap. But is there anything else like just stuff that you notice and how you see that?
I googled what is gall, where it says the wine mixed with gall. Tasting it, he refused to drink it.
I-
It said it was like a myrrh added.
I think it's like a very like sour, very like
Yeah. And I think people actually use that as like a reverse of when Jesus was given birth. Because remember, it was myrrh
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
that was given.
Yeah.
So
It
people,
said it was a pain reliever sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dulled the sense of pain. So when he
But the-
tasted that, he refused.
But
it.
the fact that he refused to, he was just like, no.
Because it says when he had tasted, so he was gonna drink the
Yeah.
wine, that was fine, but it was the fact that there was something in it, he
the fact that he tasted it too, like,
Cutting corners.
yeah, the fact that he tasted it, and, like, I'll be honest, I don't know what the pain that he felt, but I'm not the highest with the pain tolerance. I can handle it, but I would be like, no, I need something. I need something to get me through this, and so.
I don't know anybody who would go up on a cross.
No, yeah.
Not being okay with some pain relief.
Oh no, yeah, well, like,
What's also interesting is 44, where it's both robbers who are reviling him.
yeah.
And I think that it actually goes back to like what I said yesterday with the idea of the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. Because if you notice throughout the Old Testament, people go back and forth between the two. Look at Rahab, for example.
Yeah.
And you can even see this with the robber, the thief on the cross, is that he went between both sides. So again, it's that cycle all over again, just with Jesus as the completion of that cycle and canceling it.
39 says, those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, like, how often did this happen? That these people are just walking by, there's people lying up there.
It was very common. Very, very, very common.
Because again, Jesus is supposed to be, or anyone is supposed to be an example. They would even put it alongside the roads. Like,
Yeah.
they would do crucifixions along main roads all the
Yeah,
time.
I mean, it doesn't, those who walked by,
Yeah.
like,
No,
they didn't show up to watch these
yeah.
particular.
Oh, yeah, they were just like, oh, well, what do you,
Gotta go pick up some bread. Oh, look at those guys lying up there.
well, like, another thing also is, Alex, you mentioned, like, both of the, people, but it was in, where did it go? I wrote it down too, but I believe it was in the Gospel of Luke or John. I think both mentioned that, you know, the one criminal, you know, hurled insults, but the other one was like, you do you not realize who this man is, kind of thing. And we don't know how long they were on the crosses. So this is a theory. One of your professors, one of my professors could disagree with this. But it could be that at the beginning, he kind of maybe started, you know, hurling insults, but then he started realizing who the man of Jesus Christ was, and he said, wait a minute, kind of thing.
And surely watching the way Jesus took this.
Oh, yeah, like,
negative impact.
barely.
Maybe he saw the prophecy being fulfilled before his eyes.
Yeah.
Because he's still a Jew
Especially, yeah,
Yeah.
on the cross. So
Yeah.
That's true.
Also, one of the things that I love about all the Gospels and the epistles, everything, is that they were written around 30 or so years after the events that happened. But what I love is that the man that helped carry the cross, his name is Simon. In one of the other Gospels, it is Mark 15:21. It actually says Alexander and Rufus's father, his children. So it's like, if you wanted evidence of who, like, did this actually happen, it's right there. And I love that, because it's like the Gospels, they, by saying name, they're like, here are the names. You can ask for a witness.
People, places, time.
Yeah.
People, places, and times. So, now, I'll just continue reading because there's only a little bit left. But if there's anything that you remember, just say it after I'm done reading this passage. I'm starting with 57. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Armatha, probably mispronounced that, named Joseph, but also was a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. And Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and led it to his new tomb, which he had cut in the rock. And he rolled a great stone to the entrance of the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there sitting opposite the tomb. The next day, that is after the day of preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember how that impostor said, while he was still alive, after 3 days I will rise. Therefore, order the tomb to be made secure until the third day, lest his disciples go and steal him away and tell the people he has risen from the dead. And last fraud will be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go make it as secure as you can." So they went and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone and setting a guard.
I found it interesting that here these guys that didn't believe
Mhm.
heard him say and remembered that he said, "In 3 days I'll rise again." But his disciples seem to have forgotten that.
No.
They were
Yeah.
terrified and hiding.
Yeah,
And
and
I just find that really interesting.
wait, yeah,
They were scared.
Yeah.
well, like they were terrified, and they're like,
They just
if,
watched their leader get brutally murdered.
yeah, like if there's one chance that the disciples might come and do this, can we just do this? Like just a little. No, it's true. Like they were scared. They were terrified when you think about it.
It is kind of ironic that then that becomes the excuse later on. It says that,
Yes.
oh yeah, the disciples just stole the body. Yeah, tell everyone that.
That story.
Well, I believe also they kind of put it as a the disciples, was able to knock out or take care of the one or two guards, Roman guards, that were standing guard with weapons, and these guards were trained. They knew what they were doing, and so.
Was Joseph from Arimathea or whatever a Jew? I mean, he had become a disciple of Jesus.
Oh, that is the proper way to pronounce that.
I have no idea.
It sounds better than what I said. It sounds better than what I said. I
You think he was a Jew?
believe so.
So I
Yeah.
was thinking that
Yes.
this is Passover.
Yes.
Like, isn't that pretty much the highest, most important feast of all?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Because it's the
And
time.
they spent all this time getting everything clean,
Mm-hmm.
and this man just took a dead man's body.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did he, like,
But he is a disciple of Jesus, so
Yeah.
make that clear as well.
yeah.
Which is kind of cool. Like they don't really mention him,
Like,
before or after kind of thing. That
Definitely unclean. He would have missed all the rest of the celebration.
Yeah, oh,
but he
yeah.
chose
To do-
Jesus.
Mhm.
Yeah.
hey.
Why do you think
And he
he had a
chose Jesus.
tomb in Jerusalem, or is it in Jerusalem?
Well, that's a good question. Like, no one really knows exactly where
And
it
if it says
is.
from Arimathea, but that doesn't mean he's still from there.
Yeah.
But you knew he was a rich man,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah,
because
he-
he had his own tomb.
That's true.
Yeah, like-
That's true.
They say they found the tomb of Jesus many
Every
times.
denomination.
Yeah, well,
says
yeah,
they
they,
found
they're
it.
like, we found it. I don't know where it is, but I'm gonna assume that it was probably near everything, and probably not that area. But that's just my own assumption here. I don't know. So.
Maybe, yeah, there's no telling. I mean, well, and Jerusalem was an important place, so maybe a rich man would have wanted just to be buried there.
That is true.
So maybe just, I don't know.
Unless you have other.
Who knows?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, he
there,
definitely-
it's definitely a good question. There's
Yeah.
a lot of research that actually goes into
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It was prepared in advance, I think.
And apparently, you also have John 3. Who did he talk to?
Nicodemus.
Nicodemus.
Apparently, Nicodemus is involved with this as
I
well.
read that in a book
Yes.
I'm reading, but I don't know where it says that. Is
It
it maybe
does
in a
say-
different gospel?
I believe it's in a. I think
It
it.
might be in a different gospel.
Probably Luke.
But Nicodemus is involved in this entire.
Yes, that's what I read, which is so cool.
Honestly, next year I'm probably just gonna go through Luke because I love Luke and it already has all the references that we need anyways.
And Luke,
Yes.
he
He was very particular about the
right,
information
but
too.
he interviewed people, I think.
Mhm.
Probably that he- 'cause he
Yeah.
was not there.
No, yeah.
Not one of the.
He was not one of the 12.
So he had to interview the disciples.
Yeah, he was a disciple of Paul and I believe Peter. Paul
Yeah,
more.
that's
Yeah. But yeah, so I just looking at this, I think it's something one of those things where we read it, we talk about it, mostly only during the Easter time. We talk about the pain that he went through, the sorrow that he felt while praying in Gethsemane. the fact that not just one of his disciples, but two of his disciples, it was like almost betraying him because one denied, one betrayed. The others just kind of ran away, and so it's one of those things where I was trying to think of, like, when we go about these lessons when we finish tonight. Where are we? Are we going to not just remember it this day, or are we not just going to remember his resurrection tomorrow, but talk about it, share with the good news, share the good news, as the t-shirts say, that Jesus is risen. He is risen. Let us share that gospel. Let us share the word of God with everyone, and share with them every detail, even though there's some moments where, like, we don't know what that means, or it says this, but the other gospel says this. Help each other out and be able to fully grasp what the gospels are saying and everything. That's why when I teach, I a lot of times want y'all to be like, well, what about this? Or, well, my version says this or something. I want you guys to question, so that when the time comes for you to share the gospel with your friends, with people at your schools, or just when you go off and when you eventually graduate high school, you'll be able to share the gospel and just be able to talk with anyone about what we have discussed while we study the scriptures. So before we finish, is there anything else?
I was just going to say that it is very interesting because the disciples have already abandoned Jesus.
Yes.
And it's either one or maybe two who are disciples but are not of the 12.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't the close associates of Jesus, and yet they're the ones that end up taking his body and meticulously and carefully.
English is hard.
Yes. Wrap him in clean linen,
Mm-hmm.
not dirty linen. There was a lot of
clean-
preparation. There was time. And they took care of his body and then put him in a very respectable place, which would have been a rich man's tomb.
Yeah.
Particularly with Nicodemus being
Yeah.
there, that like feels like he finally came forward because he was secretive about it in
Yes.
the past, and this time he went straight and
But it really highlights also the failure of the disciples too.
yeah.
Just like they're at complete rock bottom at this point.
I think they were in a much closer place to be implicated in all of it too,
Mhm.
and they didn't want to be
Yeah.
go through what he just went through.
Understandable.
Yeah.
They were they perfected crucifixion by the time of Jesus' time. No one survived it. There was only one account in Josephus of a man surviving it.
Really?
Now, the only way he survived it was because he was only up there a little bit, and he got taken down, and then the best doctor in Rome came
Oh wow.
and mended him, and he just barely
So I
survived.
guess they
The
didn't
other
do
people,
the sword thing,
Yeah.
or breaking the leg.
the other, because they didn't get to that point
Yeah,
yet,
okay,
because it was
that makes
just
sense.
in the beginning.
Yeah.
The other ones that were crucified with him, they all died.
Wow.
But so that's the only actual account of someone surviving a Roman crucifixion, even though it wasn't a full crucifixion
Yeah.
like Jesus said.
Also, correction a little bit, because you said none of his close disciples were there. In the Gospel of John, in 19, it actually mentions the disciple whom he loved in verse 26, which we all assume it was John talking about himself that way.
Yeah. I forgot about that one.
No, and I did too until you mentioned it. I was like, wait a minute, I remember. And so,
Yeah, John, take care of my mom.
yeah, yeah, that's pretty much what he said. John, mom, John. But yeah, if that's everything, I think I will pray. I think I'll pray, and then I'll send everyone out. All right, Lord, Father God, I just thank you once again that we're able to have this weekend together. Be with everyone as we go to church tomorrow and celebrate the resurrection, Lord, and let us be able to be rested and be able to be ready when the time comes tomorrow, Monday, every day after, God, for us to be able to share the gospel with everyone that we come in contact with. Share the good news that Jesus is risen, Jesus has risen, and he wants a relationship with them, Lord. And thank you for everything you've given to us. In your holy and precious name, amen.
Hey guys,